my microphone. Okay. So welcome. This is another one of my streams, the third one actually, where I'll be working on this ImGui C++ app prompt workbench. You can see the previous streams on my channel. They're archived there. You can watch VODs or just swipe through them to get up to speed. But I'll show you where we're at currently. Sorry. So this is the app currently. Prompt Workbench is sort of an ID for system prompts and LLM agents. And it has these test suites, user prompts, and you run multiple user prompts with a system prompt and do result runs to get answers and tweak system prompts so that you get better answers for a predefined set of questions. So last stream, we were making this form basically to create these test suite items. They are just an SQLite database items, and the ImGui app creates them through this form. They're just string fields, title, description, system prompt model, and we built the form with ImGui controls, then styled them and implemented some basic validation with validation messages per field. And these validations currently check if the field is empty and if a maximum length is reached. That's it. No regular expressions, nothing fancy like that. Because it's not really that necessary. And we get per field validation with custom messages. Now with that, this functionality is essentially working. We had to finish a couple of things. Currently only one font size is supported, so we need to work on that first. Figure out a way to use multiple font sizes in ImGui, which, as far as I understand, is having multiple font objects or ImGui font objects with essentially the same source or font file. And the next thing would be to apply that font size here to the validation messages, but also have this font size for future use and the ability to add multiple font sizes. We need to build some kind of architecture for fonts, maybe some struct that holds them, or I don't know yet. And after we do that, after we do the validation, we can actually go back and rethink. Currently these error messages are just structs which hold a boolean flag that there's an error and a user-friendly message in a string, and they are in helpers. I think I don't like their name. We need to rename them, position them in some header file that's appropriate so that we can use them throughout the UI. I have some ideas there. Last stream we made something quick and dirty just to get the job done. And if time allows, which I think it will, we will create another form. Currently we can create test suites. We'll create another form. The inner items of test suites are user prompts. So we can create a form to create user prompts right now. They're quite simple. User prompts, they just hold a prompt and are related to a test suite. So the form for that should be very straightforward. Now with that in mind, let's just go to my dev environment. Here I have the source. By the way, if you want to check it out, I'll link the repository in the comments, because this is open source, of course. You can check it out if you want. So I linked the prompt workbench repo in the comments. And let's actually start Tmux and see if we can get a good session in. Now, first of all, as I mentioned, let's tackle fonts. Currently, if I go to source, I have this app object. So the entire thing is running from this main function, of course, and the main actor or struct with functions that orchestrates the app init and render loop is the apt namespace and its functions. And there's an appState object. This is to avoid making a class with the object-oriented approach. I prefer a more functional, simple style. And if I open that app, currently, this is the header file. We have just 3 functions: init, render whoop, and dinit, which just cleans up. And in that init, we essentially set up everything, ImGui, everything. There are a couple of other functions. It's not just one function, but they are in the CPP file and they're local. Let me open that. So this is the CPP file. If I go to init, you see we have a couple of init functions. Yeah, here's the init function. So it creates the window, and it creates window with GOFW. It initializes GUAT, which is our bindings for modern OpenGL. We use OpenGL as a backend for ImGui to render. And then we init ImGui. And my fonts are currently here. And that init happens before the render whoop, of course. It shouldn't happen in the render whoop because it will load every frame. So let's go to that init ImGui function. And it calls a couple of functions internally again. So it creates context, and you know, these things are quite simple. I have this theme object that applies a color scheme. We don't care about that right now. And here are the fonts. So I have a local set fonts function that accepts an ImGui IO object. Let's go to that. So here's where we load all of our fonts. And currently I have only this font, and I set it as default, and it's only here. It doesn't go out of this function, so I have only one font. As far as I understand, I did some small research. I need to actually load multiple fonts here, and if I use the same font path, it should be performant and shouldn't be an issue really for different sizes, which I dislike, honestly. I think it's tedious, and I would wish I could control font size as a separate thing, but maybe it's some limitation of how ImGui handles font rendering. I understand that, so we'll work with what we have. But first I'll prompt quote to make sure my research is right and do a Google search. I did find a GitHub issue about that, and they were discussing it. But let's see. So let's start with quote. I have it open here. Currently, I just want to essentially clear up if that is the case. Okay, yeah. So each call creates its own glyph rasterization at that specific size. Okay. And we have this, essentially. I don't know if you can see well, I'll zoom in. So a similar function to mine would be this, and we have regular, small, medium, large. So this really does encourage me to not use a lot of font sizes, which I don't want. I don't want to use a lot of font sizes either way. All right, but I don't know how I would handle that, honestly. ImGui fonts. So I have this object, ImGui fonts, and I can return it right here. That is, it created that struct. Okay, I was blind to that. So it suggests I create a struct. Yeah, I would think so, to be honest. I would call it fonts. And yeah, we have regular, small, medium, large. We'll think of naming, and this function just returns that. Seems quite straightforward, to be honest. It holds pointers to these objects. Where will that live? Probably in the UI. So currently, let me go back to new vim. Currently this set fonts happens in app. I have a whole UI layer. So if I go here in the UI layer, I have views and components. So I think fonts should live here, definitely. Okay, but first, before we do that, let's try to do what? World multiple fonts. Let's go step by step. So here, let's create the struct right here inline as a test. I will call that struct fonts, and we have I am font. Currently, I'll have medium. I like that naming, regular, medium, regular, small, and let me see what I can do. So now my function will actually return fonts. So I will do exactly that. Okay. ImGui IO. Yeah, it's a similar function. So we clear fonts, existing fonts in ImGui. We get the path, that's fine. Font path string. Yeah, I can do that, honestly. I like that. As I need to reuse it multiple times, this is a no-brainer, really. And now I can... There we go. I have font regular, and we can just immediately create this object, as is the recommendation. Let's do that. Fonts, fonts. And we need to initialize them, yeah. So this would be just fonts, regular, medium. Okay. And we need to repeat the same thing for the regular small item. And the small item will be, let's say, 12 points. And now to test, I'll send the font default. First, let's use the font regular medium as it is now. So the app should, I open a pane to the right with Tmux. The app should run exactly the same way. Close it right here. It should be exactly the same as it is now. Just let me, I have a syntax error because I renamed my function right here. It was set fonts. Yeah. Now it's world fonts. I still won't use the return type, although we will use that return type later. Oh, we have a seg fault. No return statement in function. Oh, yeah. Will that cause a seg fault? I'm not sure about that. So let's return fonts and try again. Okay. And we have the same font, so everything is working. Now, if we change to regular small, we should see the smaller font size everywhere because we're changing the default. Let's see. I absolutely do not see that. But I think I'm probably setting font size somewhere else as well. So let's check. Oh, font size base. There we go. And that happens after world fonts. Yeah. So let's do what? Delete that. Let's see what would happen. Okay, now everything seems to be as expected. Well, the next step in that would be to... Let's swap back to medium now without font size base. I don't know if I need that. I don't think I need that at all. So let's rerun, and we should have a 16 points when we have the default. Yeah, default font. Okay, now we need to move that function somewhere so that it's currently local. I will close that Tmux pane. It's currently local to this app file. I need fonts everywhere, so this returns struct to be accessible everywhere. To do that, where would I code these? Well, one option is to still load them in app. Let's see. Here is my render loop. Okay. This is my render loop, and here I have all of my view models, for example. And I pass fonts to mainframe, like exactly the same way that I pass my actual view models. That would be one option. That would be one option, to just pass it down to all components from the mainframe. It's not great. Another option is to build something like a singleton thing. But that would be very different from my whole architecture. Let me check any comments. All right, I would probably go towards passing it down the mainframe. Currently, mainframe has my DB state and my view models. But maybe a singleton would be better, honestly. Especially for this case, because you would need to pass fonts down towards single components, and it will be hard to trace paths. Like these components, although I pass them down, indeed, are the database state and view models, which is very necessary. There's one view model per view, and the database state is needed everywhere throughout the views, rarely in components themselves. But yeah, doing this with the actual fonts would be tedious. I would definitely say it would be tedious. Let's see what Cloud thinks actually. Okay. Pass the font struct where needed. Okay, that's... It recommends a different approach. I do understand where it comes from. I also think so, in a way. I just don't know if that's the right approach, especially for the fonts. Let me check. What do I have in upstate currently, for example? Because that's the other object with state I have. Let me see the header file. Not this header file, the app header file. So currently upstate has not much. Yeah. If I pass it down, it will be here in app and just next to the view models, I guess. next to the render whoop. Yeah, as I mentioned, in the mainframe. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that as a simple thing, and then if it gets too complex and I pass too many things, we'll think about it. Now, okay, we'll pass it down, but I still need to figure out where it should live, essentially. And I think it should have its own thing. I'll make a fonts.h. Let's do pragma once, and I will save. Let's open another window. Here I'll open my app cpp file, go to fonts. So I'll copy that. I will encompass everything in a fonts namespace because I like that. Okay, we need ImGui, the header. Now we have that struct. Let's also move this function, ideally. All right. Well, I can just call it Walt now because we're in the fonts namespace. That makes it a little bit easier. And what else? Everything else is pretty much the same. I will remove the struct from here. I need to import something from the standard library for path. Let me see what it is. File system. Yeah, of course. And then, yeah, I have the using namespace std file system here, which I want in this file. This is a header. Actually, wait. I will not need file system in the header. Currently, my implementation is here. It won't be here in a bit. So let's just define here, and I will create a new file. Of course, right here, fonts cpp. And I'll copy that. I will include fonts.h. This file system import is needed here. Okay. So here, let me just indent this properly. Okay. Here we need to use the namespace, which is fonts. And then we have fonts load. We have ImGui already. Is that the fonts header file? Yes. Why doesn't it find that file? Expected and qualified ID. Yeah, I have some syntax errors here. Let's fix them first, and stuff here should be fixed as well. Okay. So we can remove that, and now we can do using std file system. Was it std file system? Wait, it wasn't? I believe it was. It was like this, right? Ah, yeah, of course, using namespace. Sorry, my bad. Okay, good. So we have that. That's good. Everything here should be fine. We load the file sizes. I'll stay with 12 for now. And we return fonts. Now that we have this abstraction, let's first add the new files to CMake. And they should be right here. Okay. The header is added automatically. I'll just add the CPP file, and now I can use them. Let's first see. Do I have world fonts here? I do. And so I have ImGui IO right here. I need it in the render wall. By the way, let's collapse this because it's too long. And both of these, I think... Well, no, I have IO here as well, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. I can load the fonts right here. And now I have to actually include that fonts header file. And this will now be fonts load. And I can a lot of fonts here. It's fine. That's all right. It's not it's understandable, to be honest. And now we have fonts here and we can pass them to the actual where mainframe, I think. That was the point. Yeah. But we need to edit the header file, of course. So let's go to UI, and I think mainframe is in UI.h. Yep. We'll do fonts reference, of course. And let's include it. Okay. And we need to also... Why do I have an error here? Okay. Just IntelliSense catching up, I'm guessing. Let me just check the stream. Yeah, everything seems to be all right. What do we have? Well, the fonts are now in the mainframe, and I need to go to components, mainframe, and do check out what it calls. First of all, add this here, and I need to include it. Okay, and the mainframe, yeah, it has everything. The sidebar layout, the dock space, the main content, and the router. From here I can pass it to any view, basically. Okay, let's now test it. I needed it where exactly? I needed it in the create form right here, UI components, views, sorry, create test suits right here. The whole thing, the whole idea was to reduce the font size of these items. And to do that, my component that renders this, which is input error, should also accept a font. As a second parameter. Let's fix the indentation here. So I'll accept a fonts reference. Oops. Good. Of course, I need to edit the header file, as always. which is in UI, the UI header file. Actually, the error was the first argument, and the second argument is this const reference to a fonts object. Okay, and this is input error, shouldn't have this IntelliSense error now. And finally, now I should be able to push a font here. How can I? I do not remember exactly the function naming, and I don't want to look up the documentation. So I have push font and pop font. Okay. I don't like passing this around so much. I would definitely probably change it. So push font, fonts regular small, and then ImGui pop font. Is that correct? Yeah, seems to be. Okay, and now finally we need to, let me close that pane. We need to grep for input error where it's used and pass fonts there. Currently that's in my create test suits view. Okay, so right here I will include fonts header, and I'll do I will do fonts reference, like everywhere. Yeah, of course. UI, where we have to add that as well. Create test suite. Like this. Let's see if the error disappears. Come on. Yes. And ImGui is not used here. Okay, we can remove that. And now finally, every input error has to receive that font's reference. There are only a couple of them, so everything should be all right. Okay. All right. Now, final step is I have to pass this to create test suite. So let's first close that pane and grep for create test suite. Whatever it is. There's a lot of create test suite here. It's in the mainframe. Here it is. So I can look for create test suite. It's somewhere in the router. Oh, sorry. This uses the mainframe. I need the mainframe component definition right here. Yeah, and I need to look for create test suite. Somewhere. I'm still at the wrong place. It's in components, mainframe. There we go. Create test suite here. I think I have them already here, right? Yeah, okay. So now we passed it throughout everything. Let's try to build. Nope. UI fonts, yeah. It's not in UI at all. Maybe it should be though, to be fair. No, it's all right. Let's leave it there for now and we'll see if there's a need to move it. Probably. I mean, the UI layer is for that, so. Okay. All right. It was a lot of work for that, but we can now use multiple fonts everywhere, pretty much. With some hassle, admittedly. Well, let me just check if I want to maybe adjust this a little bit. I think a 13 size would be more appropriate because this is too small. And then we can move on to the next task. Yeah. Well, I don't like this passing, which is why I was leaning towards something like a singleton type of thing, or at least storing it somewhere in some object that is common, like UI utils, UI state that gets passed once. Probably do that instead of singleton. But let's now talk about the next task, which is errors. Currently, the errors I display on this page, like this, title is required, description is required, are all objects which are in helpers, the header file. And that shouldn't be here. And I don't like the form error kind of thing. I want a more general, maybe display error naming. If I need to, I can make more specific errors later. I can change all of the errors later. It's fine. And this can happen in a single header file. I do not need any... Honestly, I don't need an implementation file for that. So let's make that file. I'll call it errors.h. I was that. Let me revert so that I can yank it. Okay. Let's paste it here. I need my pragma once. And okay. I will include string. All right, and this is my display error string. I will remove it from helpers. I already did that. And I think I'll have a namespace to be consistent and because I like it. To avoid some naming issues. Display error, okay. And now I need to change my types wherever that's used. Let me close that pane and we'll grep for form error basically. Where is it? I pass it to input error. We have it in the view model and right here. So let's first handle it in the view model. That's the majority of the cases. We need to include the errors header. And I'll do a poke find and replace. Just form error will be replaced with errors display error. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do essentially. And I'll grep again for form error to check the other cases. Here it is. Let's first change the header. I don't think I need helpers. I can include errors.h. Let's change that errors. Display error. Yeah. And let's do the final one. It's in the implementation right here. Do we use other helpers here? Yeah, I do. So I will not remove helpers from here, but all right. What's wrong here? Oh, I do need the UI.h header. I don't know why I removed it. I think it was highlighted. Okay, good. All right, let's check again if everything is running as expected, and then I'll see what's going on. All right, we built correctly. That's cool. If the errors are working, that's fine. I don't want to associate any methods with them. In many cases, you would have some helpers to create or just whatever, manipulate these errors, but they're such simple structs. I prefer to keep them just as structs in a single header and manipulate them like this. Discuss error value and the message. That would be enough. All right. So what's next? Another form, I think. Let's check out the app and we'll see. So we have that form ready and pretty functional. Soon I need to tackle a layout system, which will be an interesting thing on its own, because I want to stack sort of a vertical layout with spacing, and I want a horizontal layout with spacing. And I'll make a system for that if ImGui doesn't offer something out of the box, which I doubt. I think it probably does. We'll see. But now my plan was to create another form. So currently we have test suits, user prompts, and the next step would be to be able to create user prompts with a form like this one. So let's do the setup for that. It's another view, some boilerplate. Let's see. To start, I will copy that view, the create test suits view, because it will be quite similar. I'll do create user prompts, plural, and it should include pretty much everything this does. All right, let's switch my panels, and I'll go to the UI header file and do its definition there. Wait, is that a view? Create test suit. Is it singular? Really? Okay. And that's plural. Oh, I have a naming issue here. I shouldn't use nakecase for file names because that's my convention. So I need to fix that later, the plural and singular in the create test suit name, because I hate that for consistency. But for now, I'll focus on the create user prompts form. So create user prompts and cut that and add it to the end or after the user prompt details. I want to bundle them by business logic, essentially. Okay, that's the proper spacing. Here, I don't think we need... What view models do we need? Test suits view model, and... I mean, this needs its own view model, but I will definitely need test suits and user prompts, because we need to get the current test suit to add the user prompt to it. It's a related item. And we also need to add it to the list, to the vector of user prompts that's loaded when we create it. So yeah, or refresh that. So we need that. Let's pass, how was it called? user prompt. No, wait, the user prompts were in test suite. So that view model is all we need really, besides a new custom view model. Yeah. Okay. For now, I will not pass the new view model because I want to render something without writing too much code beforehand. Let me first check if my syntax is correct. I will comment out all of these fields because I expect a view model. And to only leave the back button for now. That's enough to start. What else do we need for a route? Well, we need to add it to the router. So I'll go to my left pane. I have a routing header file here. And I'll do user prompt create. Let's see. Here everything should be fine. Let's go to the mainframe. Switch statement is the router, essentially. Well, let's see, user prompt details. And here we'll add another case for user prompt create. And we'll call that function, which currently accepts, what does it accept? I'll copy that because it's the same thing basically. A user prompts, I think. Ah, no, it's create user prompts. Okay, and I will remove that. It's a little bit annoying, this new Vim headers thing. I will disable it after the stream. I really hate it, especially when I'm zoomed in for streaming. It takes so much vertical real estate. I don't like it. So what else? The last thing we need to test the new view is just add a button to open it. So that button will be where? In test suite. Let's go to that view. I'll first close the right pane and go to views, test suite. Here it is. And I have a button to create a test suite. I'll copy that button. And right before user prompts, I think. Ah, no, it's not in test suite. It's in the test suite details. Yeah. So that's the actual view model I need to pass. The test suite details view model. But that doesn't have its own view model. Look at that. It uses test suites. Yeah, because they have current. Okay. I might rework that, to be honest. But for now we have title, description, and then right below user prompts we'll add a button. This is of course temporary. And we will lead the user to create user prompts. Okay, let me see how I code it, because I probably need to change it. Yeah. That's it. Whoops. Let's save. All right, that should do it for now. We should be able to run and get our new view, and we'll start from there. Oh, I have an error. user prompt creating is not a member of routing. Did you mean user prompt details? No, I don't think so. Let me see. Ah, yeah, I need to rename my router in the mainframe. Here we have user prompt details and user prompt create. Well, we now need to have the newly renamed create user prompts. Let's try to build again. Should work. No, we don't. Do we have a linker? Yeah, I forgot to add some new file. Which file exactly? Yeah, the new view. Yeah. There we go. All right, let's try again. That's a good sign. So when we go to test suites, we have the new button to create a new user prompt, and we get to an empty view, which is what we have implemented so far, so nothing to complain about. Now, let me check the view model situation here. Let me show you what I mean. I'll rerun the build app from, here's the binary. It starts a little bit slowly right now because I haven't optimized the startup and it has some blocking. Everything is blocking. But yeah, I want to see the situation here in test suite details because it seems to use the same view model as test suites, which is not how I wanted to build this architecture. I probably made a mistake here. So let me go to source view models, UI view models. Okay. And here, here we have test suites and current test suite. Okay, so currently the details view model is coupled to my, I could do that, to be honest. That's not that bad. It has some advantages, pass fewer structs around, so I might keep that and use that as a convention. In fact, I would do just that. I mean, by the same logic, you can have one fat struct with the entire application state. And I might get to that even. It will be a lot easier. Just view state, and that's it. Because I don't have that much state. Honestly, it's very tiny when you look at it. It will be struct with like 3 vectors at most and a few integers and structs. So it wouldn't be that hard to maintain. Let me check the chat a bit because I haven't. Oh, we have a super thanks. Thank you, Dora. And Haydar is asking, hi, what are you doing? So yeah, I'm making this graphical user interface LLM agent prompt ID with C++ and ImGui. And it's actually fun, although a bit challenging, but it's coming out nicely. And we're making forms, validation, thinking about view models, stuff like that. So I'm currently working on this new form right here to create a user prompt, which is one of the data types, just a user prompt that goes in a test suite for regression testing. Now, so I passed the test suite. We have it right here. We have its ID, and I have this view model. And that's all I need in my view to create a new, brand new test suite. Let's go to the view now and see what we can do. But I will need to make its own view model, of course, for the fields and the validation and everything. So let's do that as well. I'll copy the create test suite view model. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Hey there. So what do we have here? Another namespace. Like honestly, these are getting they're too many, but we'll see. Like on the other hand, if I use only one, all of these fields will be in one struct, which I wouldn't like. I have naming issues and whatnot. So it's not that cool. How would I name this? Create user prompts, of course. Like create test suite. Singular, apparently. And I'll have create user prompt view model. And what does a user prompt have? Let me open another panel right here to the right, and we'll go to dba.h database access layer and check my user prompt fields. Well, there are not many, just a prompt string. So I will only have one field. And one error. I will keep the init function for consistency. And for now, I won't have all of these. I'll implement them later. Well, the value, actually, yeah, there's no point in deleting them. Yes, let's just implement them. We'll do create user prompts, which is DBA state this view model and the test suite view model. Exactly. Okay, and validate will just need the view model, so the prompt field. All right. So besides that, we need to implement all of these, and that should happen in a new file. Let's create the CPP file. This is our header. So my view models are in, if I didn't mention this, in the UI folder, viewmodels.h, while my implementation is in viewmodels CPP. I might need to split that, but it's still small. So we'll keep that. It will grow though. With validation, it gets a little bit hefty. So let's copy an init function, preferably the one for create test suite. It does almost nothing. But in some cases it does, and I keep it for consistency. Create user prompts. Init. All right, and it returns a create user prompt view model. That's the init done. Now let's do the create. Copy the create test suite function right here. And we will modify it for the user prompt, which shouldn't be that hard. We need the create user prompt view model, and of course create test suite. From the DB access layer, I will receive the user prompt ID of the newly created item, and I can just do create I believe user prompts. I've implemented all of these. They're just SQL queries at their core. And it needs DBA state, and I don't remember what else. Let's see, the OSP server, prompt, and test suite ID. Thankfully, we have all of that. So prompt will be create user prompt view model prompt. And the test suite ID will be the test suite's view model current test suite ID. Like this. So this is an optional. Ideally, maybe I should check. Yeah, let's check if it will always be here. You wouldn't be able to even access this part of the user interface without first opening a test suite. So if you've opened the test suite and it renders this button to create a user prompt, you already have that. But a check will not hurt. And I need to check this with like this. Let me fix my indentation and my shift width. Okay. So here we have the ID. After we create that, we refresh the test suites. Well, that's not entirely necessary, to be honest. Refreshing the test suites only will not do much. Because, yeah, obviously I need to refresh the user prompts. And where are they, to be honest? How do I retrieve them? That's interesting. If I use the same view model, where does that view, details view, test suite details, retrieve user prompts? User prompt details view model. I have that. Wait, what? I didn't know that. Ah. That's weird. Why does a user prompt details view have many user prompts? That's strange. It doesn't make any sense. So my view currently test suite details. To render user prompts, it uses the user prompt details view model. That seems messed up, honestly. It's not the right thing at all. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe I had a different architecture before. But user prompt details uses just what? Current user prompts. Exactly. And my idea was maybe to have this as user prompts view model. Like I have test suites. Yeah, test suite view model. Okay, I understand. So details and list in one view model was my idea back then. And then I changed that to details, so that corrupted my logic. I will go with that. Let's name this user prompt view model. That should be more consistent with the current architecture, and then we'll consider that more, think about that more in the future. Let's change that in the CPP file. So it's called user prompt view model right now, I think. And then VM user prompt details is now called user prompt. Yeah. Okay. Any errors in the CPP file? Not really. Okay. So that was successful, but we still have many places where that's used, primarily in the UI components and the views. Let's start from apt. From app, sorry. Here, yeah, let's do that. And then we replace the view model. I mean, it's shorter, the name, so that's something. User prompt details view model. Let's do UI.h first. And the view model. All right. Where else do we have it? In the components where I use it. Okay. Here it's only one instance per item, so it's easy to change. Oops, here we have another one. Let's see. Let's check for VM user prompt details. That should be better. Okay. So we should have fixed that. Let's try to build just to be sure, and then we'll continue. We're close to having a functional form actually. Okay, that's good. All right, so now if I close that panel and go back to my create user forms view, user prompts, I need to pass the actual view right here. Wait, I have an error here? No, I shouldn't. It's an alt error. Yep. So here, let's go to UI.agent and pass that in the create user prompts. I also need to rename all of these variables and arguments, but I'll do that later at some point during refactoring sessions, not now. This is singular. which is somewhat inconsistent, to be honest. Now let's go back to the view. Okay. This will definitely change. So I will not, this whole architecture with the view models will definitely change. So I will not spend time to equalize them in terms of plural, singular, consistency. That's not that critical right now. So I'll remove all the fields and leave only one field and one error, but let's make sure it's multi-line. Remove model. I'll leave system prompt. And I'll change it to user prompt. Here we will use the create the user prompt. What are we going to use actually? So I need the user prompt view model and the create user prompt view model. I do not need the test suits view model. So I'll pass that. I think it was like that. Is it correct? Apparently. Let's just go to the definition again and edit it. How was it called? Create user prompts. Yeah. All right. So now we shouldn't have an error here at least. Okay. And this, what it will do is we can now actually bind this input to the create user prompt view model, I think. Field. All right. And the error will be just the error field, which was prompt error, I think. All right. Finally, I need to modify the button here to create user prompt. Here we'll do use view model create user prompt validate. Okay, we will validate. Here we have to check for a single error before we continue, and that is the what field? Prompt, the only field. Prompt error. There we go. If there's no error, we will call create user prompt. It's a little bit repetitive, but that's normal. It needs create user prompt view model, and I think user prompt view model, something like that. We can change that in a bit. And finally, it will push to test suite details, I think. Right? Did you mean test suite details? Okay. I don't like that name, to be honest. Finally, we'll reset the fields. create user prompts. Wait. Create user prompt view model. Yeah. All right. And now we just need to check that create function because I didn't finish it. Let's open it right here in view model CPP, create user prompts. So it accepts the create user prompt view model. Wait, that's in it. Yeah, it accepts test suits and it should accept user prompt. User prompt view model. And I'll change the name here. All right, we need to change the definition. So let's do that immediately. That's in view models. The function. All right, change the variable name here. And that error should go away. Okay, it does. Now, oh really? I need to test use view model as well? Okay. I need it for the current test suite ID. I wish I didn't delete it. Either way, it's a little bit of typing, but whatever. All right, so up until here, everything is fine. This is good. We create the prompt. Right here, we need a different logic to basically, let's see, how do we currently get the current user prompt? Let's see, view models, user prompt view model. Here it is. I guess in the init, probably in the init. So we will need a refresh function like here. Let's just add it immediately. Ah, that's great. So here I have current test suite ID, which means I don't need that view model. I can use the user prompt view models property current test suite ID. All right. Wait, what's wrong? Oh yeah, I should access this with this syntax, I think. No. But I need the value because it's an optional. I already check if it exists, so that's fine. Yeah, and here we will not refresh test suits. We need to refresh user prompts. So that will be the last thing I'll do. Let's now see how to do that. To refresh, I will of course need the view model. And the DBA state. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Let's copy that definition and go to the implementation. It's actually here. So I'll go to user prompt view model. Yeah, here it is. DBA state. Okay, it doesn't do it here. It does it in set test suite ID. So instead, we'll do it in this function right here. And that will be quite straightforward because we already do it. All we need to do is copy these two lines. User prompts, result runs. All right. Do we pass the user prompt? I do. Okay. We need to add some namespaces here. So this is void VM user prompt refresh. That should fix that. Test suite ID is a different thing. It's right here in the view model. Really? Current test suite ID value. And I'll collapse that, of course, to multiple lines so that we get an actual readable piece of code. Okay. And I need to do a similar thing, and I need to check here. This is a void function, so I'll just return early. And we need to implement logging at some point. I know that I haven't forgot. We'll get to that as well. There are a million things building a desktop app besides the app. All right, that should do it. Let me check chat real quick before we try to build and finish. Hi, Zero Day. What's up? Have a cool tux thumbnail, by the way. Vamsi, sorry if I am misspelling your name. Why using C++? Yeah, just for fun or any particular reason. Not really a particular reason, just it's a good choice for this, I believe, for immediate mode graphic user interfaces. My other choice would be Rust and ImGui. These are basically the two choices I would go with in almost any case. And yeah, there's no particular reason not to go with Rust here. I just enjoy writing C sometimes. And if you do modern C++, it can be all right in terms of ergonomics and safe structures you have and methods to work around with memory compared to Rust as well. So there's no particular reason, just my preference for this specific project and the fact that ImGui is very stable and very mature as a framework, probably more than any other immediate mode GUI framework. And that's the case for many C++ libraries. I wouldn't call ImGui a framework, actually. That's pretty wrong. But yeah, C++ libraries, you can find some very good ones out there and some very bad ones. I don't know what would you use for something like this? Do you think that's an unconventional choice? I think people nowadays are very skeptical towards C++, especially C++. I think they don't want to use it and run away from it like the Blake, pretty much. Where were we? yeah, we have this refresh function now that refreshes user prompts, and my set test suite ID should just call it. So it can just call refresh with user prompt VM and DBA state. By the way, DBA state should come first. No. Quite the opposite, sorry. What's wrong here? Let me fix that variable name. Okay. Now we have this function separate, so we can call it after we create our new user prompt. Quite straightforward. Let's go to the view, create user prompts, and right here at the end, where are we? What's wrong here? Undeclared identifier, user prompt VM. There we go. So VM is a problem now. Expected 4 arguments. Let me check. This is in the view model. So I'm right here. Did I change it? It needs test suits. Oh, yeah, I figured it doesn't need test suits. So that's the error I'm getting. Let me go back to the view. Where am I? Create user prompts. And at the bottom, yeah, I have this comment right here. Otherwise, everything is fine. And here at the end, if we don't have an error, after maybe before pushing the new route, we should call VM user prompts refresh. And I think I need to pass user prompt view model and DBA state. That's how I build it, right? Let's check for IntelliSense errors. Okay, none. So this should work in theory if it builds, which it shouldn't because it's a lot of code. I made a mistake somewhere. So you're an electronics engineer and just stumbled upon my live stream. Okay, that seems interesting. You do embedded programming. Okay, haven't done embedded, to be fair. I know a little bit about it conceptually from school, but haven't had the time to just tinker with it as an interest. Yeah, I mean, this is basically a very lean way to build graphical user interfaces with C, because it's what is called immediate mode. I don't know if you've built user interfaces for embedded. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe with something like Qt or I don't know. But this is not retained mode, so it re-renders in theory every frame, which might seem wasteful at first glance because it's, of course, re-rendering every frame like a game, but that's not entirely true. Because it re-renders every frame, state management is much easier, so you don't need to basically have state data, app data separate from the UI layer, like in all retained mode libraries where we have this whole structure and data structure where you which determines what should be when the app should re-render, basically, and that causes a lot of issue. In this immediate mode GUI, you just are in sync all the time because it re-renders every frame, and you don't re-render every frame because you can do this hybrid rendering thing where it re-renders only on event. For example, if I'm not mouse hovering and I left the app alone, right now it's not using any resources pretty much. And if I hover over it, it starts re-rendering. And if there's some animation also. And it's not that heavy in terms of resource usage. It's actually quite lean and pretty nice. Now, yeah, let's test it. So it built, I think. No, it didn't. Of course it didn't. Create user prompt. Test suits VM. Let me see. I have a passing issue. Invalid init of reference type create user prompt. That is in mainframe. So let's go to mainframe. Line 163 somewhere here. Create user prompt. So what I should pass? Let me see what I should pass. This is the view. So I can go to UI.h and see. It expects create user prompt VM and user prompts. Okay. After fonts. So create user prompt VM and now I don't know if I even have that view model initialized here. I don't. So let's do that. There we go. Create user prompt VM. So I pass that as an argument, the parameter. I need to basically see where and change the header file. So the header file for that will be in UI.h actually. Mainframe. Yeah, I'll call it, it's not needed here. I do it for my own sake. I like it to be consistent, but I need to maintain these as well. All right. So what else? I added it to the definition, to the implementation. Let me refresh that. Okay. Any errors now? Probably not. But I need to grep for where I use mainframe and pass that here. And I need to create a user prompt VM right here. Let me initialize it. Yeah, that's boilerplate, a lot of it. Okay, let's try to build now. Should build. If I linked everything and set up everything correctly. No, I didn't. In mainframe, you have a typo probably. Mainframe.cpp 165. I have user prompt details VM here as a variable because this is the old name of that. Let's change that. Okay, let's build again. Okay, now a linker error. I didn't link that probably. My view I did link, so what exactly is not linked? Create user prompts. Ah, the view model. Which is where? Components. Ah, no. Wait a second. So the create user prompt CPP file. Create user prompt validate. Oh, I haven't implemented the validate function. That's the problem. Okay. Let me open the header file, viewModels.h. Whoops. All right. This needs a namespace. Let's create user prompt. What's wrong? Ah, it's view models. Create user prompt. And the validation should be similar to this in terms of flow. So first we have a reset. So let's add that. Here we have prompt error this time. And I'll just copy that and set its message to empty. So when we start validation, we reset the error object. Next up, we check if it's empty and if it has max length. In this case, it will be just empty because we don't want a max length on the prompt. Okay. I will paste that right here and paste it again. Actually, it got consumed, of course. Let's paste it again. So we flag that there's an error and a message for the user prompt is required. And what else do we have as logic? All of that. Here we have more fields. But that's pretty much it. Yeah. So reset and then validate. Let's run. Let's see if we built. Finally, have a working build. Okay. Create user prompt. We have the field. It's required. That's good. So test prompt 1. All right. Everything seems to be working as expected. All right. Great. Kind of like that. Well, that was the plan for today. We have implemented fonts with different sizes. We added a better error handling struct just in terms of organization. Quite simple, admittedly. And we did that create user prompt form, which is no small feat. Like we have the basic views for reading, read part of CRUD of all data types. Now we have create on test suites and user prompts. The last create we need to do is result runs, but that create is actually more involved because the result run is something asynchronous, which will do API calls. That's the last thing we'll do. So the next step is to basically implement delete on items, edit on these two items, which is test suites and user prompts, because these won't be editable, they will be removable though. And finally, we'll tackle the last challenge, which will be to actually execute and do a result run, which will be the point of this program. But it needs to be, as I mentioned, async, separate thread or something like that, and do API calls. We have the API client, but we don't want to block the main thread, so that will be a little bit harder. After that is done, we'll do some polishing touches on the UI and do a settings page here. And yeah, we'll see from that where we go from that. But next time, I think I'll do delete. That's what I am planning to do next time. We'll implement the deletion, and if time allows, we'll see if we can tackle some layout. Additionally, I wanna also do some work on the UI in parallel so that I don't have a very ugly thing to style at the end. But UI work sort of falls in parallel to the actual logic. I also need to figure out something when an error occurs here. I also need to reset errors when I go back for the whole view somehow in a more elegant way, but we'll see. All right, let me check for some last comments, questions, and there doesn't seem to be any. So thank you for watching again. Appreciate the comments, the discussions. And I'll see you soon. This weekend I plan to do streams. We'll see, maybe one of the 2 weekend days, so that I have some time to rest as well. But Saturday or Sunday, I'll schedule it in advance so you can check it out. As always, thanks for watching and take care.